Hi everyone, I am Brittany the Cosmic Lunar Soul. Welcome to my channel if you're new. Welcome back to all of my subscribers. Today we are going to be talking about the basics of sigil magic, and I want to show you 5 easy methods for creating your sigil. I'm going to use the same prompt, everything, to make it really easy. So let's go ahead and get into it. So a quick overview, sigil magic is just a practice that involves creating and using symbols or sigils to manifest a specific intention or desire. The history of sigil magic is really complex. It spans various cultures and time periods, so it makes it very versatile, and it makes it a really adaptive method of spell work that you can use for a lot of topics within your craft. Okay, let's talk about the first method. This is the breakdown method. This is where you take all of the letters and then break them down into their base shapes and create a sigil from there. So let's go ahead and switch into my different view here. So for this, I am going to use Procreate. That's just so I'm not using a lot of paper, but you can use this, follow along with a piece of paper, whatever works for you. So I am gonna go through, let me just change this here, and let's talk about the setup. So when you're writing out your sigil, you want to make sure that you are writing out your intention in the present tense and in a positive tone. So as of the recording of this video, we are about to enter the holidays. So I want to write, let's see. So I'm gonna write, my holidays are happy and full of love. Now this is a very long message if you look at it, and I'm sure you're thinking, oh my God, we have to break down all of these letters. Well, no. The next step in your setup is going to be crossing out any repetitive letters, any vowels. This is where you can decide if Y is a vowel to you or not. I tend to keep my Ys, but that is completely up to you. So I don't know exactly why we do this step, but there are theories that I like, that I will usually go along with, that makes sense to me. So one of them is that doing this helps to, we want all of those out. This is hard to do while I'm talking, so let me do this and I'll talk through the different reasons. Be right back. So one of the rumors is that the consonants are only the necessary parts of a word to help identify it. So if you've ever read something and you kind of don't even register the vowels, or you take them out as part of a game, if you've ever done that, you've realized that you don't even need them to kind of get an idea of what the words are. Think of Jeopardy, for example. No, Wheel of Fortune. Another idea is that it's simplification, right? Fewer letters, easier to focus on, easier to write, because just like I was saying, that is a very long message. You can make them shorter and have multiple sigils for each, but sometimes that's not what you want. Another idea is that it makes it harder for people to decode. Obviously, that's not the case here because you're seeing the message. That's usually not the case for any of the sigils that I'm sharing with people, or selling to people, or creating for people, obviously. And then another one, which I'm not as strong of, I don't have as strong of a background on, but just in my research, this is something that's come up a few times, is that it's based on the Hebrew influence of historical seals, such as the Seal of Solomon. So just keeping all of that in mind, obviously you can see what I am leaning more heavily towards versus things that I don't, but it is what it is. Anyway, so after I do this, I like to rewrite my letters out just in caps so I can see everything. This just allows me to make sure that I got rid of all of the duplicates, I missed that H, for example. Oops, I almost missed that R, but I got it. And then we don't need that D because I already got that. And then we just have the V here, right? So these are the letters, and then what I like to do from here is, break down, sorry guys, there we go. I like to break down these into their respective shapes. So here we have this, right? These are forming the M, these are forming the Y. I'm not doing it necessarily to scale, I just want to see the shapes that I have. So you can do this in a lot of different ways. If you use this method often, you will find that you don't have to really do this step anymore. I do this somewhat, to some degree, sometimes. And I'll explain all of that in the end. Once we go through the other steps, it'll make more sense. So once you get all of this down, this is when you just start piecing things together, right? So we have a lot of these swirlies here with the S, the D, the P, the piece of the R. So this could look something like this, where you just have like some winding shape here, where you're utilizing all of those swirls. And then we have a lot of these jagged shapes with the M's, the Y's. We have a lot of more angular shapes that are going on, right? So one of the things that we can do here, we can just do a lot of this. I have another idea that I'm gonna do in the end. You don't have to use all of them. Like, so I used to count them out and like cross them off as I went along, but you don't necessarily have to use all of them. You're just trying to look for inspiration to draw your shapes out and use a lot of the shapes built in from your thing. So it starts to feel, this is gonna look a lot like the freehand method, but I'm gonna describe that a little differently at the very end so you'll see what I'm talking about. So you start to have these shapes that are starting to be built up. If you did this in lowercase, it might look a little different, but that is, you know, again, up to you. So we have some horizontal shapes. We do have some vertical shapes. So what I'm gonna do is expand out our vertical. And this is just like sketch mode here, right? This is where you're sketching things out. You're starting to see how things are gonna come together. And then I kind of look like, I like that almost. I think that's really cool. Another idea I had was to do it like this, where we kind of have it expanding up. And, you know, for those of us that celebrate Christmas, this kind of looks like a little bit of a tree here. And then we can have our vertical lines all connected. We can have our horizontal to form our nice base. For the swirlies, it could be part of, we can even build like a frame right around our tree, or under our tree rather, like a pedestal that it's on, where we have our like swirlies that we get from our F's, or P's rather, S's and R's, and draw our swigglies that way. And this can be very literal. I actually like this one a little better, but you kind of get an idea of how to utilize some of these. So obviously, once you have your sigil, I have a video about how to activate a sigil, how to charge a sigil. So just go ahead and check that out. It's linked in the description below. But this is the breakdown method. Okay, so that was the breakdown method. Let's go on to the grid method. The grid method is actually my favorite. This is the one that I actually start off with. So let's talk about the setup of the grid method here. So let's go through and just number out, number out our grid. Okay, so we have our grid, 1, 2, 3. Doesn't look like a grid yet, but we're getting there, guys. And in Procreate, if you're using this to use regularly, you can straighten out these lines and stuff. So what you do is, for the grid, you have a key. This is our key right here. So key. I use 1 through 9. 1 through 9 is very popular. I like to use 9s in a lot of my workings because I really enjoy the fact that I don't, it's long story. If you want to know more about it, I'll explain in another video. So all you want to do is go through the alphabet. So you have a few options here with your key. I like to leave the full alphabet in because it pushes the letters around differently. If you like to take out your vowels like I do, you don't have to do the vowels. It's just easier when I'm writing it out. If you want to create a permanent key that you can pull up for yourself, where you've already worked out everything without having to go through the alphabet and forget, like leaving out the vowels, that might be easier for you. But all of this is very adaptive, like I said. So we're gonna stick with our previous one. I'm gonna go back through because I'm lazy. Okay, so I'm gonna just go back and copy this just so we can see it in the other view. Copy. Paste. All right, so we have our thing here. Okay, so I am getting ready to draw out my grid. So I just have a square to start off with, and then I'm gonna divide this into, so I'm gonna draw out 3 columns. Doesn't have to be perfect, that's what I'm telling myself. Telling you guys as well as myself. So the way I do the boxes is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. You can write them out. I'll write them out for the sake of this video, but you don't have to. I usually don't, but because this is for you guys and not for me, at least you can see how I am doing things. You can see 8 and 9. So I'm gonna add another layer just so if I screw something up, I'm cool. So now this is where you start to build things out. I like to start off with a dot. You don't have to, but that's just how I know where I am, right? So I try to go from center of the box to center of the box. If I do repeats, then I go based off of the best path to take. So we have our M, which is 7, going straight down to, or 4 rather, going straight down to Y at 7, across to 8, up to 3, back down to 4, up to 1, across to 9, and then back over to 7. So I'm going to go make that further down, back up to, or not back up rather, but up to 5, over to 6. And then it's funny because we end off right back at 4. So I'm gonna adjust that line to 6 a bit. So it's like this, and then we can go back to 4. So I closed this off completely. That's, you don't have to do that. How you go across these grids is totally up to you. So I'm gonna go ahead and duplicate this layer and then move it over so you guys can see. And that would be your sigil using the grid method. The next method that we're going to talk about is really, really similar. It is the circle method. So I'm actually going to go back into my view and clean this up a bit. The only thing I'm going to change is this. So 1 second, I'm going to just clear that out. Okay, so I added a new layer. You don't have to really go through and draw the circle out. I'm doing this as the visual for you guys to see. So here we have our circle. I'm going to make it as big as I can for you guys to see, and then go through and number everything. So I'm actually going to make this a tad smaller because we have to add our numbering. So keeping on the same thing. You can number this however you want. I like doing it in this oops. I like doing it with this method because I can go through and respace things how I want to. On paper, sometimes it's a little harder, especially if I'm using. So see here, we have a little bit of a gap. So I'm just gonna adjust and I will be right back. Okay, so this looks pretty good for me. Now, similar to the grid method, we're gonna go through and basically match up the letters or numbers to the numbers on the circle. So again, I'm gonna start off with my dot. We have 4. For the circle method, I sometimes like to use more angular motions. It depends how things are going. You'll see in a second. So 4, we're going straight across to 7, 7 up to 8, 8 across to 3, back down to 4, going over to 1, 1 to 9, 9 down to 7 again, across to 5, 6, and then rounding it back off to 4. So what I actually like about this, I'm going to show you in a second. One of the reasons I really like the circle method is sometimes I can see whether I want my sigil to be encircled or not. So I accidentally forgot to put it on another layer, so that actually works out really well. Let's duplicate it and make it a little smaller and move this over. Okay, so you can see the difference between the grid method that we have and the circle method. I actually really like the circle method a bit because if we think back to our breakdown method, we have more of these curves here based off of so many of the letters that we had. We also have our like enclosed box in a few different manners here, which I really like. So if I were to choose at the moment, I'd probably lean towards the circle method if I had to choose between these two. Okay, following up the circle method is actually one that I don't use regularly, but it is a viable option. I don't use it regularly because it is the witch's circle method and it requires like a specific circle. I'll make sure to have the a link to the downloadable so you have access to this if this is a method that you want to use. So let's go back to our thing here. This is the witch's circle. It is a predefined setup. I'm going to go ahead and add this layer. Let's see if I still have this in my paste. I do. Go me. Okay. So again, we have our prompt, which is my holidays are happy and full of love. Gonna go ahead and clean this up, even though I don't have to. I know I have a problem. So here, unlike the grid method and the circle method that we used before, you don't have to number this because there are no numbers. The circle is based off of the complete alphabet. Now this means that if you take out vowels, you're not going to be using parts of this in the same way that my grid had the vowels. So that again is up to you. That is your personal preference. Let's go through and see what this looks like. I've only done the, actually, let's go through and let's pick a different color because the black on black is harder to see. All right, so we're starting off with M again, We are going down to Y, followed by H. Trying to keep my lines like even, even pressure here. Going up to L. And then we are going over to D, which is over here. Let's see. From there, we're going to S. I'm going to go over a little bit, down to R. Okay, where are you? P. Here we go. I have to like remember my alphabet because the letters are starting to get hidden. Up to N, which is why I like the circle and the grid method because of this, but it's also, it'll become second nature if you use it more often. P, N, and then F. So down to F. And then back to V. Let's fix that a little. So I'm going to add a little bit of a curve to this. So let's go ahead and duplicate this, move this over so we can see. So here is the witch's circle method. I actually want to do something that I like better. I think this makes more sense. All right, yeah, I like it better upright versus sideways. I will say that using these methods are a little difficult for longer phrases, at least for me. I really like simplicity in my sigils. A lot of people like intricacy, so it depends what method works for you for the prompt that you're using. And I say that to lead off with our next prompt, which is the freehand method. This is probably the one that I would use almost in tandem with a few others, but let's just go ahead and get into it and I will tell you what I mean. So we have our freehand method, going to just paste this back in here, get rid of this. I use a lot of the stuff that I learned from the Sigil Witchery book by Laura Tempest Sarcroft. A lot of this really dives into understanding like the depths and meaning behind the shapes in your sigil. So it talks a lot about symbology, or symbolism rather, and I use a lot of that in regards to my freehand method. Along with the freehand method, I will still do this because I like to combine freehand method with my grid method. So let me go through and actually copy in what we created from the grid method. So I said I was going to copy in the grid method, but I think I actually want to copy in the circle method. So I'm going to go in and do that. So we kind of have that on the side here so we can kind of look at everything. I already have my letters all out, so we're good to go. You don't have to do this. Freehand literally means that you are going off of how you feel, what the shapes mean to you. What do you picture? If you were to close your eyes, sit and meditate on "my holidays are happy and full of love," that could literally just be a smiley face to you. You know what? That could be your sigil, you know? So it doesn't have to be the most intricate, like fancy aesthetic design. It can be something just meaningful to you. So let's go through and talk about that. In the Sigil Witchery that I mentioned earlier, it talks about, you know, symbols for happiness and stuff like that. So some of the shapes that I see in here already, right, or we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have like conflicting boxes, but really if I think of like sixes, I really think of like triangles, right? So let me do this a little differently. I want this to be more sketchy. So let's go through. I'm gonna find a pencil. This is just for me to kind of look at. I'm gonna go through to a new layer. So like when I think of this, I think of like, you know, we have our interesting little triangle here, and then we have an intersecting triangle here. We also have this squiggly here, right? It almost looks kind of like an infinity symbol to me. That is definitely an 8. Here we go. So we have like infinity symbol, which can just mean like the infinite happiness that you have, stuff like that. And then also just the fact that we have a lot of angular things. So I just kind of want to go through and add in these angular shapes. A lot of times with arrows, as explained in the Sigil Witchery, is pointing the energy where you want it. So the way that I see this is I am pointing the energy that I'm hoping to get into this vessel here, which is going to just capture all of that happiness, all of the love, and that's going to instill it into the space and radiate out. You can also do it the other way, where you see it as a sigil, as the beacon, and then it radiates out, kind of like if you think of like a Wi-Fi signal, right? So you can do it where it goes the other way. And then I think what I want to do at the edge of these is almost like, I like to incorporate these little like swirls at the ends of my sigils a lot. You will see that in quite a few of this, a few of the sigils that I have listed in my shop. Swirls, spirals, they oftentimes can represent cycles, they can represent flowing. It just helps to allow some more movement. So I also like this, you know, it's basically a star, and if you think of it, if you celebrate Christmas or anything like that, stars are tree toppers. So they're the beacon at the top of the tree. If you don't celebrate Christmas, but just understanding stars, a lot of cultures wish upon stars. So it's like setting that wish into this star that you hope to get something out of. So there's a lot of ways to look at this star imagery, but I'm gonna go ahead and make that bigger for you. So some of the similarities, right, just to draw like conclusions to what I was talking about with freehand, I like to sometimes use the inspiration of other methods. So in this case, the circle method. I still broke down our letters just in case. And we have a lot of these very angular letters. We have our M, Y, we have the N, we have the V. We have a lot of triangular shapes. So these intersecting shapes are still incorporating a lot of the elements similar to the breakdown method. And then I added in symbols that are meaningful to me. I really like the infinity symbol. I like swirls, which still incorporate the squiggles of like the S, the P, the R. So you're still getting in a lot of those other methods, which is why I wanted to save the freehand method for last. Okay guys, so that was your 5 easy methods. I think they're easy. You'll have to tell me which ones you think are the best, which are your favorite, which you really enjoy using. Let me know in the comments if you enjoyed this video. Make sure you give me a like, hit that subscribe button and that notification bell so you don't miss out on any future videos. And I will see you in the next Sigil video. Bye guys.